G'day, my name's Edward Jackson.
G'day, my name's Brenton Chapman. We're both going to be the guides for the Nordic Touring part of Rock and Ice. So we're going to run through the ski setup that's specific and then some kit that's a little bit different and specific to Nordic Touring. So first of all, for the skis, slightly different for those that have seen skis before. You'll notice that there is a pattern on the base that provides traction moving up hills, slightly a little bit of drag moving down hills. And they're also probably a little bit skinnier than most skis for those that have skied inbounds. Additionally, the bindings are a little bit different. So these are tally mark bindings. So your toe is attached and your heel is attached to the front with a cable binding, but your heel is free to rise and fall while you move. Slightly different to downhill downhill poles. Touring poles are adjustable depending on if you're going up and down traversing different terrain. You need to be able to adjust the height of your poles, and you'll also notice that the basket is much larger than those that are used traditionally inbounds inside resorts. Moving on to the boots. So the key part for touring boots is the way that the duckbill at the front here, formerly known as the 75mm fitting, attaches into the ski. Similar kind of setup to the way they attach. They have a separate liner on the inside which you can take out to help dry out, which is good. And then to assist you moving up and down hills, you can also have the flex where your binding can be locked to flex and move when you're walking up hills, and then locked so then you have more control when you're skiing down. Certainly not required, but however if you do have them, the pattern traction on the base is pretty good, but climbing skins, as you would have seen in Al's video for Alpine Touring, if you watch that, definitely assist if we sort of exceed the traction ability of your skis. Also for those that are a little bit less confident in the icy Australian conditions, these can be good as a brake for moving down hills. Pretty much concludes the ski setup, and we'll now move up to the kit.
Thanks, Chappy. Now I'll go through some of the kit that you can expect to carry on your person, and bearing in mind that this is kit which is unique to the backcountry phase, and what I'll say will build on the other videos from the other leaders. We'll now just look down the table in front of me. I'll mention gloves, and so what you can see is here is the configuration that I take. I take a pair of softer gloves. I tend to wear it during the day, and then when the weather is foul or there's snow or wind or rain, I've got my outer shell, this protective shell in it, which is a mitt made of Gore-Tex. And you can see another pair of soft shell gloves here. For the evenings, when you're in the tent, I've got a pair of thermal gloves here. In addition to the beanie from the other videos, some kit that you can see with backcountry skis can be turtlenecks or buffs. And then I've got a balaclava. The pants that I wear are a sort of technical fabric or a soft shell, and that would be worn underneath Gore-Tex if the weather is bad. But if the weather is quite decent, then I'll wear those soft shell pants by themselves. You can generate a fair bit of heat when you're backcountry skiing, so a pair of pants, soft shell pants, is a good selection. Finally, at the end here, you can see whistle. So when you go backcountry skiing, a whistle is a really important addition for our own safety. Turning to the next line here, I've got a couple of different utility bags. This bag here is the one that I keep my food in, so once the rat pack is stripped or the rations are stripped, I tend to keep my food in one bag, but there's lots of ways, more than one way to skin a cat. The second bag here is a dry bag. In there I've got my spare thermals, underwear. On a short trip, for example 5 days, I would take no more than 2 pairs of spare socks. This next bag here is a utility bag. This is where all my odds and ends go. Everything from headlamps to pocket knives, matches, things like that are all in this utility bag. And that utility bag for me always goes in the same spot, and that's in the top part of my fill pack. I just want to talk to you about water. And when I ski, I have a smaller bottle of water that's on my person. That could be the very top part of my pack. And then I have a 1 litre water bottle. It's an Nalgene water bottle, and it's a wide mouth so I can add some snow to the water. Lots of different ways to carry water. Some people carry camelbacks, and lots of different techniques. Lastly, I'll mention on this line here, I'll mention a thermarest cup. And in that's where I have my brews, but I have my breakfast in here, and I do a lot of my cooking in this mug. This bottom line here, you can see that I've got a snow shovel. This goes on the outside of my pack. We'll issue a snow shovel. This line here are sponges. One way that I remove snow from the inside of my tent and also remove condensation from the inside of my tent is to use a sponge. And I can wipe down the inside of my tent to remove the condensation and then wring it out, and likewise remove snow from inside of my tent. But a soft shell cloth is equally as good. We'll be doing digging and snow survival activities on this trip, and so we'd encourage you to bring a pair of rubber kitchen gloves to keep your gloves dry when you're doing digging. Lastly, over here, I've got a hoochie and or equivalent and a ground mat, and we need one of these per pair because this will be indispensable when we're digging snow survival shelters. So bring a hoochie or equivalent, a ground sheet, one per pair. Have I missed anything, Chappy?
I think the only other one, in addition to the thermal cup, is sometimes a small thermos can be used interchangeably. The benefit of that, if it has a sealable lid, kind of like the Life Venture brew mugs for those in green, is that you can have hot water, and then at lunch you can have things like soup rather than having to stop and brew up, which if the weather's foul, finding a spot out of the wind to cook can be a bit frustrating, whereas if you've got the benefit of heating your water in your tent, keeping it warm to lunch, sometimes a brew at lunch can be quite nice. I think that pretty much wraps up everything in terms of that Nordic Touring specific kit. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks when you will make it to sunny Canberra.